This is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Here now, Tony Bruschi.
It's one of those details in the case against Bryan Kohberger that seems too small to matter. Or does it? Your phone quietly searching for a familiar Wi-Fi network. No drama, no flashing neon sign, but in the world of digital forensic, those quiet moments are often the ones that change everything. And in this case, it was a single handshake between Bryan Kohberger's phone and a router broadcasting one particular name that we're about to dive into. What was that name of that router? The Mad Greek. Yeah, where two of the victims worked. There's a lot of data on Kohberger's phone that just doesn't exist. And comparing that to many of the cases we follow where the digital footprint seems pretty obvious and kind of shocking that no one even made an attempt to delete it, Kohberger made an attempt, and likely a successful one at that, because a lot of the data, digital footprint, it's just not there. You can tell it was there, but you can tell it's been wiped, and wiped in a way that makes it non-recoverable. At least most of it. But there are little glimmers here, little pieces of the story that many are digging into and many are finding answers, including some folks at Cellebrite. Who can say definitively his phone connected or at least saw the Mad Greek network? Now, what does that mean? We're going to break this all down in case technology is not your thing. It means that at some point he was near the Mad Greek, which is not a crazy thing to guess. I mean, it's not that big of a community. He's a vegetarian. They have vegetarian options. He's a professor in the general area. And if you're just out living your life in any way, shape, or form, it's likely at some point in time you might have come near this network where your phone then goes and says, you know, hey, this is on the network. And if you click on it and you know the password, or if there is no password, you connect to it. Like if you do it right now, if there's people around you, if you live in a neighborhood, if you're not secluded to the middle of nowhere, go to Wi-Fi networks. You will find many of them just waiting for you to connect. And you may be kind of disturbed by the names some of your neighbors give them. I like to change mine all the time to very disturbing things that make my neighbors question why they are currently still living in the neighborhood. I'm kidding, I don't. It's very normal. But just think about that for a second. What does this mean? It looks like it could be a big deal. Or is it just a red herring? He passed by. So did thousands of people who've never eaten at the Mad Greek. If you look at their phones, you will find, past that Wi-Fi, you'll find thousands of networks in your phone. Maybe tens of thousands of networks in your phone data that you never connected to, but your phone data says you were near. And in a case like this, every little breadcrumb matters. And that's why we're talking about it. The Mad Greek, if you're just starting to pay attention to this, wasn't just any local spot in Moscow, Idaho, where all of this went down. It was the place where two of the victims worked. And when Cellebrite's forensic examiners went line by line through the phone's data, they found that network in its history. They didn't say it proved he sat down there and had a vegetarian pizza with a diet right. No, they didn't say it put him there for sure. They don't say it put him in conversation with anyone. What they said was simple. His phone had at some point recognized and likely connected to the Mad Greek's Wi-Fi. Not a rumor, not a memory. That is a digital artifact of all of this. To understand why this matters, you have to appreciate how your phone behaves when you're not paying attention. Every few seconds, it's scanning. It's basically asking, do I know any of you? To all the routers that it's seeing. And if it does, then you have the setting checked to connect. It tries to connect to these networks that it knows automatically. So you have better Wi-Fi. It does it at the grocery store, at your friend's house, at the coffee shop where you once asked for the password. Your device stores those networks like a Rolodex with timestamps and when you last shook hands with them. And that's exactly what the forensic team saw at the Mad Greek. Why is it important? Because of what else was in the phone and what wasn't. The Cellebrite team, Heather and Jared Barnhart, weren't just looking at his saved networks. They were mapping behavior. And they found what they described as abnormal gaps in his data on both his phone and his school-issued computer. Windows logs that should have been recording activity between November 11th and 16th. Guess what? Dead silent. Chrome history entries missing exactly when downloads occurred. They told the court those gaps could be consistent with cleanup or anti-forensic techniques. That's a posture of someone trying to control their digital shadow. It's like scrubbing footprints off a dirt path. But here's the thing about being human. You never scrub everything. Somewhere, there's always a missing little spot. And for Kohberger, one of those missed spots was the digital memory of a restaurant where two victims worked. Now, in January 23, before any of this forensic detail was public, a former employee told people that Kohberger had been in the Mad Greek at least twice, ordering his vegan pizza. And that statement exploded online. Then the owner issued a public denial, saying she had no memory or record of him ever being there, and pleaded with reporters to stop harassing her staff. The story died in a fog of conflicting human memory. But months later, the phone's memory entered the chat. And here's where it gets technical. Forensic tools like Cellebrite can pull not just the visible known networks list from a phone setting, but also buried system files containing the network's name, the SSID, the router's unique identifier, the BSSID, and the last time the device associated with it. On Android, that lives in config and log files. On iOS, it's stored in the keychain and diagnostic dumps. The report didn't print the raw data, but the examiner's phrasing, passively logged, suggests an actual association event, not just seeing the network in the air. And that's a key difference. Seeing a network means you were nearby at once. Joining it means you were within the router's limited bubble, like inside or just outside. Consumer-grade routers in a small restaurant like the Mad Greek have a practical range of 50 to maybe 150 feet indoors. To join, you have to be inside that radius, and you usually need the password unless it's open, which means either they got it at some point or it was stored from a prior visit. This isn't a case where your phone connects to Starbucks Wi-Fi from a block away. It's a unique SSID tied to a single place, and if the examiners possibly more than once, as her comment is accurate, or if it is accurate, that suggests multiple joint events, more than just one accidental brush. That's just one tile in the mosaic. The same phone was part of a larger behavioral pattern that night. The FBI's CAST expert mapped it, active around 2:47 a.m., using a tower southeast of his apartment. Then radio silence at 2:54 a.m. Not a dead battery, not a dropped call, full communication, blackout. And then 4:48 a.m. it came back. That window lines up precisely with the estimated time of the murders. Separate unsealed records show that at 12:26 a.m. he searched for the local police dispatch feed on Broadcastify. It's not bedtime scrolling, that's operational. Now put yourself in the mindset the data describes. You're someone who spent months studying crime formally in a PhD program, and privately, through your own obsessions, you've been driving by the victim's house late at night, over and over. Your school computer goes quiet for days. Your phone links to a restaurant where two of the victims work. On the night in question, you're awake past midnight looking up police radio. Then you vanish from the network just before 3 a.m. and reappear 2 hours later. Those are choices. Those are rehearsals executed as reality. The Mad Greek artifact doesn't tell us what he ordered or if he made eye contact with anyone, but it adds a point on the map of his known world. It places him inside, or close enough to connect to the environment of two people who would later be murdered. And because it survived the larger digital cleanup, it stands out as one of those mundane oversights that prosecutors love. Not because it's a smoking gun, but because it's an unforced error in an otherwise careful pattern. And the rest of that pattern is worth talking about. On the school computer, Windows logs and the SRUM data missing for the key window, even though it was a normal academic week. Chrome history gaps coinciding with downloads, suggesting private browsing or deliberate deletion. And then, of course, on the phone, the abnormal gaps, the radio silence during the crime, the phone scanner search, the connection to the Mad Greek, all of it framed by repeated cell site hits near the victim's house in the weeks before. What does that say about motive? Well, nothing directly. Digital evidence? Well, it does sometimes, but not necessarily here. He didn't necessarily do the search of how to kill college girls in a house. You know, it wasn't about knife work. It was a breadcrumb that he connected to a network. This is someone who thought he could choreograph every variable. His movements, his device activity, his digital exhaust. Someone who believed that control could be total. The forensic team's job was to show the jury where that belief cracked. There's another human element here, too. When the restaurant's name started bouncing around the news, the owner and the staff became unwilling characters in a national crime story they never asked to be part of. The owner's denial may be honest. Human memory is flawed, especially when you serve hundreds of people. The phone's memory is flawed, too. It doesn't know why it connected or what happened after. Holding both truths is the only responsible way to tell this part of the story. And that's the point I keep coming back to. The Mad Greek, the log isn't about proving a relationship. It's about proving familiarity. Phones don't save networks by magic. Phones, it's data. It's there or it's not. He didn't type in the Mad Greek and suddenly the network showed up on a log. He was close, very close to it at some point in time. The level of interaction, that's the point in question. I don't think it's hard for anyone to believe that at some point in the weeks leading up before the murders, that he knew more about them than we will ever know. He hit his tracks well enough. And he was close enough to that router in that restaurant to shake its hand. That's it. It's a case that's built on connecting thousands of tiny dots. And this one matters. Because when you stack it next to the other dots, the surveillance drives, the wiped logs, the midnight police scanner search, the communications blackout, it stops being a trivial detail. It becomes part of the architecture of the crime. Not a pillar, but a brick. And sometimes it's the overlooked bricks that keep the whole wall standing. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments section. The Mad Greek is a quiet character in this story. How big of a role did it play? I don't know. I think some of the digital data is telling us more than we were aware of, more than even investigators were aware of. And I think we're going to continue to find more out. Even though obviously he's admitted to the crimes now and is in prison for the rest of his life. The whole how, when, where, those questions still linger, and we're going to keep doing our best to try and answer them for you right here. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube. If you're not there already, search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi to find us there. Do the same search on podcast platforms as well. You find us wherever you get podcasts. You can take us on the go. Until next time, my name is Tony Bruschi. We will talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.